Hello Taffers, let's look at some more indie immersive sims that are coming out or have been released the last few years. My last video I looked at a whole batch of indie immersive sims of what's been released recently and what's coming up in the near future. I received a growing list of indie immersive sims that I missed that are coming out soon or have been out the last few years, enough to make another video on the subject. So here we are. Some of these I purchased, some of them I checked out their demos, and a bunch have been added to my wish list for upcoming sales and when they're released. So let's hop to it. Some of these tend to be a little more outside the norm when it comes to immersive sims as far as perspective goes or elements they pull from, a lot from roguelike, but that's the beauty of it, smaller developers taking the formula and running with it. Check the description below for links to these games. I don't make a plan on making another video of a compilation of upcoming immersive sims in the indie space, but do feel free to leave some mentions of those in the comments. Consortium the Tower, which is the sequel to Consortium, which I featured in my previous video, and this one is bizarre to say the least. It's a hardcore sci-fi first-person role-playing experience. Explore, talk, fight, and or sneak through the Churchill Tower in 2042. One of the Steam reviews for it described it as a Star Trek episode meets Deus Ex. I played the demo for this one. It's in early access, and it's buggy and bizarre, and I'm not quite sure exactly what the hell is going on, but it is fascinating to see the least. A way you can talk your way out of pretty much any situation and talk to anyone and have full dialogue with them, and the game not stopping while you do so is great. Or of course, you could just tase them. If you want something that gives more of a choice in regards to dialogue or talking your way out of things, this is one to check out and keep an eye on. It's definitely got me curious to check out the original Consortium. Skin Deep from Blendo Games, who have done titles like Quadrilateral Cowboy and 30 Flights of Loving. I played 30 Flights of Loving a long time ago. It was more of a surrealist short story more than the game, but it was quite memorable. You'll be in a vast non-linear starship to sneak, subvert, and sabotage and survive in stellar sandbox, outnumbered, outgunned, and have no shoes. I look forward to seeing all the scenarios that you could get yourself into with the inclusion of no shoes, like in Die Hard. A lot of issues that could be avoided with proper footwear. The fact that you could sneeze to alert your enemies is such a bizarre and peculiar addition of ways you may get brought down, which is really interesting. Plus, you could do the Sam Fisher split jump. Another one that was recommended was Zombaliens, which I tried the demo out for. You get this open area with multiple approaches to deal with humans that are turned into zombies by aliens. While still very bare bones and needs a lot of work, I can see the potential in this one. Lots of interesting things to do. Having the ability to shoot guns, kicking them, jetpacks, throwing in all these elements together. This one feels more of a heavy FPS influence, but there's a lot of potential here. You can check out the demo below in the description, it's fun. This one feels like you could spend a lot of time on, or if you want to just do a short 20-minute play session, it's there as well. Tunguska, the Visitation. This one has not really had any updates in a while, but it is really interesting because it's more or less an isometric stalker. Maybe at some points a little too on the nose when it comes to the stalker influence, but it is nice to see. This isn't a point and click like say the old Fallout games, but you control your character with the arrow keys. Even for an early product, which seems to have not been updated in years, it played quite well. This one has a lot of promise. I wish there was more information on it because I'd be really looking forward to checking this one out more. Although for whatever reason, the first enemy took me multiple times to try and take down, even just sneaking up right behind him and blasting him from behind. So those are some immersive sims on the horizon, so let's take a look at some that have been released the last few years. Noita. This one is leaving early access as of October 15th and moving to version 1.0. It takes the 2D pixel look that's in the roguelike style with procedurally generated worlds, but the interesting thing here is that every single pixel is simulated. Burn it, explode it, melt it, the choice is up to you, along with creating your own spells. One of the top comments with over 275 hours, wow, in the game had this to say about it. One time I transmuted projectiles to sheep, proceeded to eat them, and attracted a big worm which in turn ate me. It's a circle of life. If that doesn't sell the game to you, I don't know what will. And I agree. The Swindle, this one was recommended to me by one of the developers of Safe Not Safe, who were featured in the previous video, and also received a full video from Mark Brown's Game Maker's Toolkit. It does look like something that's worth checking out on sale, even though it does have mixed reviews. This is a heist game breaking into buildings, hacking systems, stealing all that cash. All the buildings you'll be robbing are randomly generated, so you never get the same level twice. Looking at the comments, the major complaints being that the randomly generated levels can be a bit iffy, and the clunky controls. Still, one to keep an eye out for when it goes on sale at any point. Beast Agenda 2030, full disclosure, I did get a Steam key from the developers on this one. Inspired by the works of Escape from New York, Shadowrun, SNES and Genesis versions, Deus Ex, and H.P. Lovecraft. It takes a stealth gadgets and hacking focus approach. The Shadowrun description really caught my eye because that SNES version is such an odd duck and a lot of fun that I remember from years past. We have a top-down perspective as we make our way on rollerblades through this procedurally generated towns avoiding Cthulhu cops, turrets, and other enemies to rescue other humans. Roller skates is such a nice, weird touch. I do enjoy moonwalking with them as well. There's a lot of fun gadgets that you could throw together with other combinations, and if you could think of an interesting combination, you could probably do it. So there's something really fun about hacking cars and getting to drive into other enemies. I do wish there were some audio cues from enemies, although we do have a musical audio cue for getting close to being detected or have been detected, and the detection bar that fills when enemies are close by could use a little more feedback. There are plenty of times I wasn't sure when I would be spotted. You have plenty of options of upgrades to improve your abilities as time goes on. What I do like about this one is if you want to sit down for a short play session, get 20-30 minutes, you totally can. Immersive sims typically aren't the kind of games you sit down for with just 10 to 20 minutes, something like, I couldn't imagine myself playing Deus Ex or Thief for just 20 minutes. This one had a lot of fun elements and I found myself really enjoying it from this top-down perspective, so give it a whirl. Thief Simulator. This one got a fair amount of attention for a time by various YouTubers and streamers some time back. I did check it out a while ago. I found it pretty good, not great. It definitely feels like it was made to be a very streaming-friendly game. Did feel unfinished at the time. It sounds like it has been improved, but there were some turnoffs I had with it. It was very hand-holdy at the beginning and very visual-based. It's unfortunately one of those stealth games that relies more on seeing through walls and looking at your mini-map as opposed to making use of your surroundings. Of course, you could turn these off, but the game was built with those in mind. It's not really one where you can make use of a lot of audio cues like the Thief games. To note, the game does offer a ton of flexibility in how you want to approach these robberies, which is nice to see, even some of the design choices and how it plays leaves a little bit to be desired. It is always at a cheap price, so if you do want a fix of your Thief and you've made your way through all the dark mods or Thief fan missions, this is one you could check out. Pathologic and Pathologic 2. I've only played the original and not the second one, which is more of a reimagining of the first game. And it's, well, what's the best way to describe it? Misery simulator? Coming to a town that's going through a plague, and you have to get to the bottom of this with all these notable families at each other's throats. I found the original absolutely fascinating, even though if it's incredibly punishing and hard to get into. But once you do, my goodness, there's next to nothing out there like it. Grab yourself a notebook for this one to take note of all the families and who they are and keep track of your time, because if you don't, it's easy to screw up. This one comes from Icepick Lodge, a Russian studio, and from reading the dialogue, yep, you could definitely tell it's something from a country that produced the likes of Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. While I have not played the sequel, fan reception has been very positive and it has made the game more manageable and user-friendly and not really relying on dumbing down. My experience with the original, there was tons of that bizarre jank that you get from this kind of game that was really enduring. Plus it has it has one of the strangest trading systems I've ever come across. Plus it has some of the most fascinating, bizarre music that I've come across in the game. Every once in a while, I'll just randomly hum that throughout the day. It seems the best approach would be, if you've never tried these ones, is to play Pathologic 2. If you enjoyed it, get the original in the meantime to try the other two campaigns. For Pathologic 2 only has one campaign right now, while the other two will be added in as time goes on. Eventide Sigil is an experimental first-person permadeath adventure set in the post-industrial wreckage of a Midwestern town. It has that low-poly PS1 aesthetic, which I really dig, that's made use a lot of in the survival horror indie space. This one was very, very cryptic and bizarre, to say the least. There's these people always looking at you wherever you turn. There's these knights. All these random objects you can equip, and there's the permadeath as well. I do appreciate how it comes with a manual that's just a few pages and told in a very cryptic manner. This one is very minimal, more experimental, and does have this enticing atmosphere that if you're into that kind of thing, it is worth a look. I find this one harder to describe as more as you have to check it out for yourself. There's Void Bastards, which goes with a comic book style look, and the gameplay is inspired by titles like Bioshock and System Shock 2, while also including a lot of roguelike elements to it. The art style also reminds me a lot of the PS2 era game 13. The Occupation, described as an investigative thriller, this one had a demo that I checked out, which is pretty interesting. It had more of the walking simulator influence, but there's still ducks to crawl through and has multiple paths. Looking at its Steam review page, it sounds like it has a bunch of bugs. And from describing what the game is, the demo doesn't do exactly a great job of covering what the game is all about. The game takes place in real time as you interview people with a fixed time length, or if you want, you could get sneaky to try to find things quicker with multiple approaches, but they're a bit more risky. Which sounds really interesting, and I wish the demo gave a taste of that. Unfortunately, it does not. And of this video's release, it's part of the September 2020 Humble Monthly Bundle if you want to give it a try. It's one of those titles I'm looking at if it goes for $5 or $10, because there does seem some promising and some interesting value out of it. It does take a cool little approach. Streets of Rogue is taking roguelike elements like Binding of Isaac along with the top-down perspective, and Deus Ex with the emergent gameplay mixed with the anarchy of Grand Theft Auto. It's a top-down pixel game where you could throw toilets at people, plus you can make insensitive jokes to piss people off. It's kind of a funny thing. The city you go around in is randomly generated, and a rarity for this kind of genre. If you want, this game has multiplayer. The top Steam review of the game has over 800 hours in the game, so I guess they made something that works right. Eldritch Reanimated comes from the developers of Neon Struck, which I featured in the last video. This is a first-person action game inspired by roguelikes, immersive sims, and H.P. Lovecraft. These elements are widely combined together, so if that's something that checks off a lot of boxes for you, this will be the game for you. This is a dungeon crawler with procedurally generated levels with plenty of approaches, how you want to navigate and make your way through them. So from all these games we've looked at in these last two videos, while a number of them are in the vein of trapped in an environment alone and running out of food and bullets, there's also a number of them that pulled from different aspects and different influences to take those immersive sim aspects and convey them in different ways than AAA titles are. Whether that's taking first person, isometric, top-down view from a variety of settings, from the immersive sim staple of cyberpunk influence to investigative political thriller in England in the late 80s, taking influences from roguelikes, or making use of randomly generated areas. It's interesting to see what kind of different approaches that these smaller independent studios have been doing, and they're part of carrying forward the immersive sim. That's been my video on immersive sims. I hope you put a lot of these on your wish list. Again, if you check the description, I'll have a bunch of them listed on these Steam pages. If you like this video, leave a comment about any other ones I might have missed. Leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell. Enjoy everyone. Boulder Punch out.